So have you ever thought what it might be like to go the full 31 days of January, partaking in Dryanuary for the month that was in it in 2021? That's exactly what I did. Coming up in part 3 of my 3-part series on Dryanuary. This is my reintroduction to the world of beer, but this is also what I've learned during my journey through Dryanuary, some of the benefits, some of the hardships, some of the things that I've actually been really shocked about. And it's opened up my eyes, and I just want to share my thoughts with you and let you know what I thought of Dryanuary. So Dryanuary and alcoholic beer coming up next. Yeah, so welcome back to Views on Brews. I am Brendan. This is a beer from Brewery. It's Off the Hook. It's a contemporary Pilsner. It's 4.5%. I'm going to be drinking this while chatting along with you guys, telling you how Dryanuary went for me and all the things that went along with it, the highs, the lows, and my reintroduction back into beer. So why do Dryanuary? What's the whole big deal about it? I mean, I know it's some kind of, for people it's a personal challenge. For some people it's to do with their health. For me, it was a whole culmination of things. Throughout the year of 2020, I have tried so many new beers. I've tried a whole bunch of, here in Ireland in 2020, we went absolutely crazy for the barrel aging. So I tried so many barrel aged beers. Those beers like this one, for instance, which I've yet to crack, that's 12% ABV. That is quite a lot of alcohol to consume as one of your beers, perhaps in a session. So coming up, I'm going to show you approximately how many calories I consumed in the month of December. That's kind of a scary thought, and while I was trying to work that out, I couldn't really believe the amount of calories I had consumed during December, and that's with not drinking crazy amounts. And we usually let ourselves enjoy the run of things in December and let our hair down if we have any. I might have overdone it. Let's have a look. Yeah, so the reasons why you might want to do Dryanuary, reevaluating your relationship with alcohol is never a bad idea. You know, the amount of calorific intake, the amounts of beer you're consuming, the cost of all these beers, resetting your palate and your taste buds. All those little extra health benefits that you might not realize, but you do when you go through Dryanuary, because you get into February and all of a sudden things are a little bit different. You know, the waistline is a little bit trimmer. There's a bit less bloating. There's a whole load of things. Your liver is thanking you. Your wallet is thanking you for sure. You're not waking up in the morning with a bit starry-eyed, needing a big fat calorific fried breakfast. And just for me personally, during the month of December, I found that through the year, I tried so many new different styles of beers. I didn't have a whole huge amount of beer. I had a decent amount. But what I found is my whole overall excitement of finding beers, when you first start out on your craft beer journey, there's a real excitement finding those beers from the breweries. And I found that was waning for me. And I was just going through the motions, as a lot of us do, and I probably will do again, of finding the next beer that you haven't had. And what I really wanted to do is reset all that and reinvigorate myself and make myself, through the absence of something that you enjoy. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So just the idea for me in January was to, reset all that and refine and refocus my enjoyment of craft beer, which I am doing. And cheers, Slancher. Thanks to Brewery, who furnished me with this beer. And I've yet to drink it. I've had it in my fridge. I'm not doing a beer review on it because it would be unfair, but I do love Brewery. Check out their Urban Jungle range while you're at it. Great brewery, great brewer, and great beers. Yeah, so those are the reasons why I decided that I would partake in Dry January. I just needed a reset, and I needed to work through my own personal relationship with beer. And I don't have a problem with beer, but if you looked over to the left of me now, which you can't see, but I might throw it up on some B-roll. I got a lot of beer still to get through. I have a huge stash of beer. I don't need to buy beer now for quite some time. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take me to get through all that beer. But I think a lot of us during the month of December just go absolutely crazy. I certainly know I did. And every single other day, there's another beer and another beer and another beer, and all these beer subscriptions, beer boxes. We're all stuck at home. We're all trying out these new things, and it's great. And I had such an amount of fun, but it's heavy, and it's enough. And I need to back off and just refine and refocus what I really enjoy about craft beers, which is just enjoying a beer. So as promised, I am here in part 3 to reevaluate some of the beers that I had during January, because what I actually did while I was having no alcoholic beer is I moved on to non-alcoholic beers. A friend of mine suggested, why don't you do some of those reviews? So I'll put a link up in the cards and down in the description to a playlist. I ended up getting through 26 or 28 different non-alcoholic options, all 0.5% or less, to varying degrees of success. There were, I'd say, about 50% of them were decent, about 50% of them were horrific, and I'd say about 10 or 15, maybe 20% of them were really, really great standard like I've not seen before from non-alcoholic options. Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly run through the ones that I really liked. You can check them out yourselves. I think a lot of what I did and didn't like had mainly to do with brewing processes, which we'll come on to in a minute. But I've got a few written down here. Weinstefner, Erdinger, Big Drop, Pine Trail, Pale Ale, Uptown Lager from Big Drop as well, Brewdog, Punk AF, Nanny States, Franziskaner Weissbier, Brooklyn Brewery Special Effects, Amber, I think it was an Amber Lager they did, Tool Implosion, the Lervig No Worries range, Kinnegar Lotard, So Beer, which is an interesting one, the grapefruit version, which is kind of like a healthy isotonic drink, Brown Bear Lager, Early Start IPA, and a couple of kombuchas. Those were the good ones, okay? And that's about half of them. And I have to say, I was surprised when I was looking for non-alcoholic options to find so many. And it's not really until you actually start looking for alcohol-free beers that you realize just how many there are now. Gone are the days of there just being the macro lagers and a couple of German options. Now we've got a whole wealth and depth of breweries, different types of craft breweries, traditional breweries, international, domestic. They're all bringing out craft beers, and I'm pretty sure in 2021 through to 2025, I think all of that and the micro IPAs, they're all just going to develop and it's going to explode, I think. So that's a big area of growth in the market. Ones that didn't really do it for me, I will say, to varying degrees. Some of them were horrific. Some of them just weren't really, they're along the way, but they're just not quite there. There was an Apostle Weiss beer, which I mistook for Franziskaner because it looks the same, monk holding a pint of beer. I actually thought it was just a different version. Baltica Zero, that didn't work for me, far too acidic, had a load of ingredients added. Stiegel Freibier, which I actually thought might be one of those beers that would come to the fore, and I go, wow, that's a bit of a revelation for me. That was no thank you. Patronus and there's two supermarket beers, Patronus and IPA as it's called, both brewed by Perlenbacher, not for me at all. Heineken Zero I tried just for, I don't know why I tried it. It just wasn't for me. Those types of beers, or at least some of those beers, made me feel like how people that were sort of, put in the corner, or you have this alcohol-free option because that's all we've got. Those days are over. All of that nonsense is done. That's just not good enough for the consumer these days. So those were the beers that I had. The best of the best, I would say, for me was Roadworks Early Start IPA, Tool Implosion, Kinnegar Low Tide, the Lervigs, No Worries, and Big Drop. Big Drop is an incredible brewery. Now, I know there's a whole bunch more that I could have gone and got, but I just went and got the ones that were local to me, and that's already 26. And not forgetting kombucha. I have a feeling that kombucha is an untapped industry. I hear about bars in London where they're brewing their own, they're tapping their own. That makes sense, it really does. You can carbonate it or not. But I had some really enjoyable kombucha. So yeah, basically the quality is on the up, but it's not quite there yet. Some of them though were absolutely fantastic. And if you want to, you can look through those videos. I'll try and link it above, trying to get my head around linking things in. So the reasons why these beers were all sort of varying degrees of quality has a lot to do with the brewing processes. Now, there's two sort of main categories of how alcohol-free beers are produced. So you can think of it this way. You can think of alcohol-free beers as having a reduced amount of alcohol. So the alcohol production is restricted, or that's the first category. And the second category, I would say, is de-alcoholizing the beer, removing, stripping out the alcohol after the beer has been made and fermented. And those two things have huge difference on the finished products, I found. Yeah, so the second of the two categories involves a whole different bunch of processes. And they're kind of based around how much equipment a brewery has. So the bigger the brewery, the more equipment it can afford. But basically what you're doing when you're stripping alcohol from beer is you are doing it through various different methods, like distillation, where you're basically you're vaporizing the alcohol at temperatures. That can be done with vacuum distillation as well, where you're actually able to decrease the temperature that you need in order to vaporize the alcohol away from the beer. Then you've got these ideas of using membranes which collect particles at such a low micron that it removes the alcohol and removes the water, and then bits and pieces are added back into it. It gets a bit technical, but what I found is the initial way of not producing alcohol via restricting the production of alcohol in some way has produced much better beers. And I think going forward, that is going to be the way that really wins out, especially for craft brewers that might not have all the technical equipment that is needed to perform all these tasks. And I don't think it's necessary. I actually think there's a much better way. So yeah, selecting a lower attenuating, lower fermenting, or lower alcohol producing yeast is a really good way of creating a lower alcohol beer. Well, at least I would think it is, because as opposed to de-alcoholizing beer, which is stripping away, that sounds bad already. When you strip away stuff, you're not just stripping the alcohol, you're also stripping away flavors, aromas, and it leaves you with sugary, watery tasting beer. Whereas if you restrict the amount of alcohol that's produced, you can just pretty much brew as per normal. That combined with a change in your process. A brewing friend of mine suggested that what he did for a couple of his beers was mash at a higher temperature. The finishing gravity therefore is higher, and you end up with a much lower ABV. If you add that to a lower attenuating yeast, you've already got the basis for a much better process for making alcohol-free beer. And actually, I think that homebrewers are probably going to be looking into this in the future. Brewing, 1 or 2 or, just under 3% beers, that actually isn't a bad idea, because if you're a home brewer and you're brewing a 19-litre batch of 7% IPA, it's tough going to get through it, especially if you're a home brewer that brews a lot of beers. So brewing something like just under 3% sounds pretty interesting to me. A lot more sessionable, a lot more easier going, a lot more drinkability to it, and you can still get the body, you can still get the mouthfeel, and you still get the alcohol buzz going on in there. I think homebrewers are going to be looking at lower ABV beers, and breweries in general. I'm pretty sure the micro IPAs, the 1.8% beers, all of those are going to be on the up as far as I can see, especially given the quality of some of these alcohol restrictive non-alcoholic beers that I've been trying. And really, a lot of that is being led by consumer demand. You can go to a bar when the bars are finally open. You can go to a bar and you can drink a couple of 6 or 7% East, West Coast, NEPAs, whatever. You can drink a couple of those, but by crikey, do you know you've had a couple of big beers. Our liver is able to process only a certain amount of alcohol. The alcohol that it can't process over the time frame that it needs to dissolve and metabolize the toxins of alcohol. The rest of all of that goes straight through the bloodstream. That's what makes us drunker quicker. I personally, I prefer like in and around the 3, the 4, the 5% beers. Now I also like a couple of 6 or 7% beers, and I like them stronger still. But if I'm going out to a pub, I'm actually going to want something, that I can have 3, 4 or 5 of without having too much of an effect afterwards. Yeah, so when it comes to alcohol-free beers, the consumer is demanding that the same quality that you get in the craft beer revolution, shall we say, is there in the non-alcoholic craft beer revolution. So you still want all those flavors, those aromas, those tastes, the mouthfeel, all of the sensory benefits that we've come to expect over the last few years. We want that in alcohol-free beer, because that's what's going to drive the popularity. And that's what's going to make people say, you know what, I can have a couple of 6% ones and I can switch down to a 1.5% one, for instance, and add that into the mix and still be able to enjoy the whole evening. Yeah, and again, a lot of that is down to, the change in culture of the way we drink alcohol here in Ireland and across Europe and further afield. We're looking at alcohol in a different way. Gone are the days where we were looking at 4.3% and we knew exactly what we were drinking. Now we're drinking a whole wider range from the lower to the upper. People are demanding more variation, more choice, and more options. And I remember a couple of years ago I was sat in a bar in the middle of Leuven outside of Brussels, and I was watching with my wife, I was watching a family of 4. It was obviously 2 younger adults and 2 elder parents. They sat down with their one glass of beer each. They sat there for an hour and a half. They just had the one beer. People drink differently when the ABV is stronger. And I found that a lot of European countries, people's approach to alcohol isn't what it was, say, for back in England and in Ireland, where we're drinking so as much as we can in a shorter time frame as possible. That kind of idea, that is all just, it's not being kicked into touch. But as the quality of craft beer improves, and as the quality of non-alcoholic craft beer improves as well, people's cultural approach to beer is changing as well. And I really think that's to the benefit of everyone. A kind of a quality over quantity, fit for purpose, right first time, brewed to customer specification across a wide range of alcoholic by volume ranges and styles. We're not just drinking macro lagers, one stout and one old man's ale anymore. All of that has been kicked into touch. That doesn't exist anymore, not in the modern day pubs. And any pubs now that don't offer alcohol-free beer and don't offer craft beer options, they're actually finding it harder to carry on. There is, of course, the last bastions out there, but by and large, in general, what's happening is the whole culture surrounding beer and people's relationship with it, my relationship with it, is changing, it's evolving, and it's just getting better. So now comes the really shocking bit, the horrific bit, the bit that we all kind of brush under the carpet and don't worry too much about, especially in the month of December, where we just enjoy ourselves a little bit to excess, both eating and drinking. I spent a little bit of time working out over the last couple of days and a real rough approximation of the calorific intake of my own beer consumption through the month of December. And I worked out broadly over the year exactly how much calories I've been consuming just in beer and how much weight I've probably put on as a result of it. So it's really hard to tell exactly how many calories are in each individual beer because there's so much different variation through beers. It was a little bit easier to work it out when we just had a standard pint of lager. But by and large, there are 43 calories per unit. I've written down here roughly 2 beers a day. I just gave them a rough idea. 2 beers a day at 5% roughly works out to be 6 units. 6 units times 31 days equals 186 units, if I've done my maths right. Probably haven't. Over the course of 4 weeks, it's actually 4.5 weeks, but 4 weeks in December, that's 45 units a week approximately. Plus I would have had a couple of beers at this strength, 10 or 10% above. So I guesstimated I had 6 beers at 10% plus. 6 by 6 units is another 36 units over the course of 31 days. So roughly 9 extra units per week. So that's a total of 54 units of alcohol per week. So going off that basic sum of 43 calories at 54 units per week gives me a calorific intake of 2,322 calories per week over the course of December. Bearing in mind, 3,500 calories is roughly 1 pound of extra body fat. During the whole month of December, and it's roughly 4.5 weeks, I put on approximately, and it's probably on the lower end if I'm really honest, like there would have been some nights where I might have just gone a little bit crazy. Approximately 10,450 extra calories, or 3 pounds in weight. That doesn't sound too much, but imagine if you multiplied that over the course of a year. So 3 by 12 is now 36 pounds, or 16.3 kilos if you like, or 2.5 stone. So just let that sink in for a minute. So if you go about drinking in a fairly regular fashion, and I'm a beer reviewer, so I do, and I run, I'm a co-runner of a beer club. I review beers every week for a newspaper column, and I generally get involved with beer. If you go on that scale, that's 2.5 stone I put on extra a year. Given the fact that this time 5 years ago I finished the Dublin Marathon, and I was God knows what weight, but I was running left, right, and centre. Now I've put on a bit more weight. I've slowed down. The belly is filling out. That's where it all goes on. It sits there. That's quite a shocking indictment of how beer calories can just creep up on you without you having gone crazy. I was having 1 or 2 beers a night. I might push out. I might have 3 or 4 on the weekend here or there, but averaged out, that is 2.5 stone of extra fat that I do not need to be carrying. And that might be a conservative estimate, especially in the month of December, we'll say. So contrast that with January. Sorry, but I keep looking over here because I've got it all written down. Some of the non-alcoholic beers, actually, this is interesting because some of the non-alcoholic beers, when I was looking on the backs of them, and you can see this if you look up in the links to all of the alcohol-free beer videos that I did during January, some of those beers were in and around the 125 calorie mark. And some of them were as low as 40 calories. Some of them were isotonic. Some of them got in your bloodstream quicker. Some of them had more starches, more protein, or more sugars, more carbohydrates than others. By and large, the German beers I found had more calorific content to them. So I also did something which is equally as shocking. I took in my precise calorific content of all the beers that I had during the month of January. So that's coming up next. Okay, so during the month of January, I had 26 individual alcohol-free beers, all of less than 0.5%. There was a couple of kombuchas knocking around in there as well. So I had 26 of them. I also had 7 duplicates of some of them. So I ended up having 33 individual cans or bottles of alcohol-free beer, we'll say. That worked out to precisely 2,560 calories. I wrote every single one down from a total of 33 beers. So contrast that now with what I had in December as a conservative, rough, probably on the low end estimate. 2,560 in January versus 10,450 calories. It's roughly a quarter of it. And to be honest, I could have reduced the non-alcoholic ones down to, I was only drinking that amount purely because I wanted to make beer review videos for the month of January and see what options were out there. So I could have reduced that down to next to nothing, or pretty much nothing at all. I could have just changed my liquid intake for water or for tea or for semi-skim milk in my coffee or whatever. So that's quite startling, I find, and it's something that didn't sit well with me. And just working out those figures, just roughly, I might have got them a bit out. I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty much certain that December's calorific intake was just far too much. It's got to change, and it's making me this whole Dryanuary for me has made me reevaluate my own relationship with beer in general. So let's talk a little bit now about the benefits that I've accrued from, let's say, 31. It actually turned out to be 34 days, because after January finished, I wasn't ready to start back drinking any alcoholic beers. I didn't feel like it. I'd actually had a chest infection for a couple of weeks, so I wasn't feeling the greatest anyway. So I didn't actually have my first alcoholic beer till I think it was the 3rd or the 4th of February. So how does that make me feel? How do I feel having abstained from alcohol for that long? What benefits, what things do I notice that had happened to me? Well, the first one that I'm going to come out with might not be the one that you're thinking of. It actually made me less bloated. My digestive system seems, I didn't really notice it until the first week of February, but my digestive system seems to be able to process everything going on in there. I mean, it's probably all the workings of the liver and the kidneys and the stomach and the intestines and all of that, but I feel less bloated. I feel lighter. I feel thinner. I don't know if I am because I didn't weigh myself, but on a recent walk, I'm out walking a lot more. I'm on the treadmill a lot more. And just out of the blue, even a couple of days ago, my wife said to me, "You have lost a lot of weight off the back where your love handles are." And I wasn't expecting that. And it was just really nice to hear that compliment that was unexpected from someone. I hadn't asked for it. I hadn't asked, what do I look like? Has there been any change? I hadn't weighed myself. I hadn't really given the weight issue much of a consideration, but someone else outside of myself had noticed that about me. And I think that's a really interesting and genuine benefit of taking the month off. Now, I don't know, but I'm sure my liver is thanking me. I know if you keep bombarding the liver with alcohol, excessive amounts of alcohol can lead to all kinds of different health problems. I'm not going to list them. You probably work them out and know them yourself. But I'm sure that there's been some form of cleansing. I do feel in myself a lot healthier. My sleep, I couldn't really tell if my sleep had benefited in January at all. But I do, not so much the sleep, but I do notice that when I wake up in the morning, I'm absolutely ready to go every single day. And I've been having a couple of beers, 1 or 2 here and there, lower ABV, couple of days without, couple of days with. Breaking up the days as well has been a good thing for me, but we'll come on to that in a minute. Yeah, I'm on the treadmill now every single day. I've taken to doing something which I think I'm considering it as multitasking. I get on the treadmill and I am walking or jogging. If I'm walking on the treadmill, I put my headphones in, podcast on. I don't notice it 1 hour later and I've burnt off 500 calories while doing something that I would have done sat on a sofa. And that's something that I really encourage people to do, is just to go with podcasts. That's been a thing for me. I haven't really realized it, but I'm now listening to all these beer reviewers podcasts and just whiling away the hours, but at the same time I'm walking or I'm jogging and I'm burning off calories as we go. So it's kind of like a double whammy effect of not drinking, so you don't wake up the next day and feel a bit groggy, or you don't feel a little bit tired or lethargic, or not interested in the idea of exercise. Going from that to now feeling in the second week of February that I'm actually, I'm sitting there drinking this beer, but this morning I was on the treadmill. Tomorrow I'll be back on it again. And I could go out for a walk this afternoon as well. And I know I've lost weight. I just don't know how much I've lost. Not a huge amount. I haven't gone crazy, but I've reduced, it's also made me think, when you reevaluate your relationship with beer, you're also starting to question other things around your lifestyle as well. Sitting down in a chair watching every single box set and series of Netflix when I could be, scripting out a few YouTube videos and thinking about things that happened in Dryanuary, where I could be out walking, or it could be on the treadmill, or out for a light jog. All those things, they all go hand in hand, and they benefit me without me really even noticing it. So those things have been hugely beneficial. Now, I'm only saying I'm doing this for a month, but I actually think my alcohol intake is going to decrease, which, is cringing to think about it. If you're a brewer and you're watching this, and the last thing you want to hear is people drinking less, especially during this pandemic we're going through. But in actual fact, if my relationship is better with alcohol, then I'm more likely to have a longer term relationship with it over the longevity of my life cycle, let's say. And my appreciation of higher quality beer, it's just been reinforced all the way through. And then, of course, on top of that, you've got the added benefit of that renewed excitement. I didn't know if I was going to feel any different on the front of, my reintroduction to beer, let's say. But I'm enjoying. I found what I'm really enjoying is going back to beers that I've had before in the past. Like Flagship February is what's happening now. It's where we support our local brewers, and we support the core range flagship beers that are out there, and I've been looking through my stash thinking, oh yeah, that old beer, and I haven't had that in a while. So I've actually gone backwards. I'm now not looking for the next thing. I've sort of stepped back and said, hey, you don't need to constantly be on the hunt for the next new beer, and meanwhile my taste buds there have all been reset. My sensory perception, I think my ability to sense tastes, flavors, aromas, sensations about beer, around beer, I think they've all been heightened, or they've been refreshed. They've had time to reset themselves, and I can go again. And I really think that's been another huge benefit on this Dryanuary journey for me. So what have I learned from this whole experience when I, sum the whole thing up? I mean, I'm honestly shocked about the calorific intake. I think that going forward, I will reevaluate the manner in which I might consume alcohol. I know for sure that I'm not going to drink one or two every night, because they all add up. It's the same for people out there that drink wine. They might open a bottle of wine. They might not want every single glass out of that wine, but because the bottle's opened, you feel like you have to drink it. And it's the same for me. I've got beers in the stash, and fresh hoppy beers that need consuming really quickly, and therefore I feel like I'm under pressure to get them drunk or get them beer reviewed. I'm now just going to let all that go and just say, you can't win them all. You can't review every single beer. I'm going to appreciate the alcohol that I do have, and I'm going to force myself to maybe not have beer on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, and maybe only drink on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or maybe 4 days a week, or maybe I just have 2 or 3 less beers a week per se, and all of that will add up. And in the meantime, I'm increasing my physical activity, my exercise. Yeah, I want to carry that on, because I can feel the difference. I know I feel lighter. I wish I'd have taken actually weighed myself before I started this, but I feel a bit lighter. And even if I can't see it on my belly, they always say it's the last place to go. It sits on the belly, all of that extra fat. we'll deal with that, but we won't just deal with it, in the month of February. We're going to deal with it slowly over the next few months. So the way I'm approaching beer myself now has changed as a result of doing Dryanuary. That's why I would really recommend you may not have any intention of doing it. You may say, well, we've missed January now. I know a lot of people that are actually doing dry February because they didn't want to do Dryanuary, or it just didn't suit them. But maybe there's a month before the summertime rolls in, the barbecues come out, we're all back out again. Maybe you want to give dry March a go, dry April a go, dry Easter, whatever. And I've learnt also that there are a deluge now of non-alcoholic options out there, and my whole feeling about alcohol-free beer is that I want to push away that stigma attached to non-alcoholic beer that's always been there in the past. It's crappy, it's tasteless, it's watery, it's thin, it tastes sugary or worty. There are some excellent beers out there, and I only think I've touched the tip of the iceberg of some of them that are available. And I think over the next couple of years there's going to be more available. And I want to have beers like this one. Let me just go pick this up for a second. Look at this beer here. There's a micro IPA for you. 2-3 years ago, we couldn't have dreamt of having, a 1.8% micro IPA. I'm going to be reviewing this one soon, and I'm just going to enjoy it. And I'm not going to feel like, I've had that beer, now I need to have a really big strong beer afterwards. That could be it for the night, And just the relationship has changed, and for the better. Yeah, and the other thing is, of course, I'd really like to be able to go to a pub on a night out and, have a couple of, West Coast 6.5% beers, and then say, okay, now I need to slow down. Now I need something that's a little bit more delicate, a little bit more table beer, like the Saisons, the low ABV Saisons. I want things in the 2 and the 3% range. That's what I want. And I want them to taste equally high in quality as some of the bigger beers as well, and to drop that stigma that low alcohol means tasteless and crappy. It's just not true. It's actually a part of people's mentality that's been put there by big macro breweries that have just filled the gap in the market for designated drivers. Something to keep them quiet in the corner. Those days are over. Consumers are demanding better. I'm demanding better, and I feel better from Dryanuary. And I guess that's about it. That's all I have to say. But I feel like I've made a bit of a statement, or I feel like I've come on camera to sort of give myself a bit of lens therapy, shall we say. Yeah, and that's my views on these non-alcoholic craft beer brews and Dryanuary in general. Hopefully you've got something out of this. If you did like some of the content, I'd really appreciate if you slap that subscribe button and just take a moment to hit the like underneath. But I also really want to find out what you guys are drinking, low alcoholic, non-alcoholic. Are you doing Dryanuary? Are you thinking about doing dry February? Are you doing dry March? Have you done it before? What beers should I be looking out for? Let me know some stuff down in the comments below. And I think that's going to wrap it up. That's been a long one. Anyway, had to be said. Cheers, sláinte, and it's on to the next one. Bye-bye.